See, today's class is going to deal about types of abstracts in journals. See, when you talk about types of abstract, the abstract for the journal and abstract for a pattern is different. Okay, narrated abstract for pattern is different. Now we are going to deal something about types of abstract. In that abstract, we have descriptive abstract. Abstract, and second one is that informative abstract. The other one is third one is critical abstract, and your fourth abstract will be your fourth abstract will be your graphical abstract, and fifth will be your video abstract. Then sixth will be your AR abstract, and seventh will be your VR abstract. That your augmented reality abstract, and then you talk about virtual reality abstract. Of course, this has been started right now. Recently, in 2015, they started to give these type of abstracts. See, when you talk about this abstract, today's class is going to deal what are the types of abstract, how to do these abstracts. And we are going to see 7 types of abstracts. And finally, this class will conclude how these abstracts are being attached to the manuscript. Okay, and that is going to be taught to you. And in that case, for the very first thing is that when you take any descriptive abstract, okay, any abstract according to the standard of APA standard, there are some standards, MLA standards, okay, IEEE standards, okay, and these standards will have some PDF files to give an explanation about how the writing should be, what are the words should be used when you talk about this type of writing. In that case, okay, by consolidating all those styles, we give a general, constraint which should be followed when you write any abstract. In that way, I can make it a very simple thing. Any abstract, any type of abstract, okay, any type of abstracts, it should have 200 to 250 words. Okay, 200 to 250 words. If you go to any publications like Wiley, they'll reject it if the abstracts are above 200 in Wiley publications. But still, certain publications they don't do that. But still, we have to maintain this number. That is very important. The word count is very important. Okay, and similar way, before getting into the abstract, how the sentence should be there. The sentence, each sentence can be with 12 words to the maximum of 18 words. A sentence should be in that count. And when you talk about how many sentences to be there in an abstract, it should be 7 to 9 sentences. Okay, 7 to 9 sentences in any abstract. These are the basic thumb rule for writing an abstract. In that case, first once again I will go to the descriptive abstract. See, the descriptive abstract will contain introduction, okay, and then first sentence or first 2 sentences. It may be according to your wish. You can make it 2 sentences or abstract. You can make 1 sentence or abstract. And second is that it is going to talk about the background. The second sentence is, this is the first sentence. Think like that, this is the first sentence. Okay. And when you talk about the second sentence, it should talk about the background. Okay. And this will be your second sentence. And third, it will talk about your problem. And then fourth will be your methodology. Okay. And the fifth, it will talk about your results. See now, if you make this, as I said earlier, okay, if you take, this is your third sentence, okay, this is your fourth sentence, and this is your fifth sentence. Okay, they give, as I said earlier, it should have 7 to 9 sentences. It means that minimum you have to conclude all your ideas, starting from your introduction, background, problem, research, and everything. You have only 5, but still sometimes you cannot stick on to one sentence. When I write results, I want to make it in 2 sentences. Sometimes I can make it 3 sentences for explaining the problem in the abstract, or sometimes methodology needs 3 sentences. So obviously you are being given 50% more. It means that actually 5 sentences should be there, but you are being given an option of 4. Actually you are being given 90% more an option to give a very exact, precise explanation about your work. This is how the descriptive abstract will be. Now, when you talk about your informative abstract, this is the second abstract which we are going to see, and this is your second abstract. When you talk about the second method of abstract, is that informative abstract. When you talk about informative abstract, see here the 3 things are playing a very vital role. Okay, that is that the first should talk about methodology. Okay, methodology. And then when you talk about the second sentence, it talks about the problem. Directly, it goes to the problem. And then this is the result. And 3 things will be done only with this informative abstract. It means that this is the method I'm following for solving this problem. When I apply this methodology to this problem, what happens, I get this much of result. This is the result I get for this problem. That is how it will be there in the informative abstract. And it is a very important thing to make clear understand. And of course, here also you can go only for minimum 7 to 9 sentences. That is very important. Okay, 7 to 9 words. And if you talk about the words, it will be there 12 words. See, it should be a precise one. When you talk about informative, it should be precise. The very important thing is when you talk about informative, it should be small when you compare to your descriptive abstract. It's information. Informative should be very cryptic, and that is what they reduce it into 3 sections: your methodology, your problem, and your result. And when you talk about the third method is that critical abstract. Okay, when I talk about the critical abstract, say the third is that your critical abstract. When you talk about critical abstract, see the critical abstract can be either informative, or the abstract may be descriptive. Okay, descriptive. It doesn't bother, but still, what is the thing which is added here is that your ground truth. You mean by ground truth, and that should be added after the result. It should be added after the result. Okay, and that is very important. What do you mean by ground truth? See, in any research, whatever may be the research. Okay, you do your simulation. Okay, you do your simulation, and you do that simulation as an implementation part. You develop some hardware. Okay, and that is what you regularly do it when you do any research work. And after that hardware, if the hardware is given to the end user, if it is given to the end user, okay, and that end user, when I talk about end user, end users. When you go to the end users, okay, this is your end users. when you have your end users, and end users results should be discussed in the abstract. It should be discussed in the abstract, and that is very important. That is called critical abstract. Okay. See, normally you do the simulation, you do your result, and you do your experiment, and you give the result. But still, when it is being checked in the real-time environment, that is called your ground truth. That is what called as your critical abstract will have an extra 1 point when you discuss with your abstract. And just I can show a small example. For example, if you want to write a ground truth or a critical abstract which relates to your ground truth, I can give it in a very simple way. Say I'm just doing a project in a satellite image. Okay, I say that this particular land region area is 100 square feet. See, I do this by using my algorithm, and I use my with my software. Okay, I use it with the software. Okay, and then I found that this is 100 square feet, for example. Now, if I go to the real world, it means that in the earth, okay, if I measure, it may be 110 or it may be 98, whatever it may be. So this is how your critical analysis is being done. When your results are being done for a critical analysis, it means that when you go for end user, and that one sentence will be added at the last after your result, as I discussed earlier, when all the thing, last comes your result. After result, when you talk something about ground truth verification, after the result, if you talk about the ground truth, okay, that says about critical abstract, because somebody will do the research and will not go to the end user. For example, I design an antenna, I get an output and I fabricate it, but when I use it really for transmission purpose, and there I find some results, and that way you put your abstract, that becomes the critical abstract. And when you talk about this, in the other aspects, when you go for biomedical, I design something, I get some data, and from my sensor, and if I give it to the end user, I test it to the end user, who is trying to use a particular sensor, there I want to see what is the difference, and that way you put your abstract, and that will becomes your critical abstract. Okay, that is very important, and I think you can understand what you mean by your critical abstract. And then a very important thing is that next thing we are going to discuss is that your graphical abstract. Okay, graphical abstract. See, graphical abstract, graphical abstract. Okay, when you talk about graphical abstract, the graphical abstract will be. I think you can say very clearly the graphical abstract is that it should be in a picture form, and a very important thing is that when you're asked to do with picture, okay, when you're asked to do with some picture, you don't try to repeat what is there in the methodology. See, everything will be there. Every paper will have your methodology block diagram. Okay, they have your methodology block diagram. See, you should not repeat what is there in your graphical abstract. It is wrong. See, actually, when you draw your graphical abstract, it should talk about the methodology and result. That's it. The methodology and its result should be the methodology and result. See, due to this methodology, some results have been come out. That should be in a form of picture. Okay, that should be in a form of picture. And that picture should give a pictorial representation of your methodology sentence. Okay, I think you know that every paper, either it is an informative or descriptive abstract, the methodology is being given and your results are given. No, and that results you are giving it in a form of text. Okay, that text should be converted into picture form. Okay, that is very important here. Not that the block diagram, because when you go to inner part of your article, you will just talk about inner part of your article. You will talk about only the methodology block diagram, not the result. So here they expect your result picture and then your methodology picture. Okay, that is what very important here to understand. Okay, so there is a difference when you talk about the graphical abstract. Of a graphical abstract will also be a block diagram. The graphical abstract can be represented in a form of block. You can give in a very beautiful way. You can say that a graphical abstract can be in a form of block, no doubt in that, but that block should contain your methodology and result. That block should contain your methodology and result. That is very important. Okay. Whereas when you talk about block diagram in your methodology section, when you write inside the paper, it will have only the detailed description of methodology. Okay, and that methodology block diagram, which is there in your article, that will talk about the details, entire detail of your flow, how you start, how you end. But here in graphical, you have to give some very clumsy way of picture form of representation, that which method and what is the result. Okay, that is very important. See, because why they are going for graphical abstract, they doesn't have time to see all those things. By seeing the abstract itself, the author can able to identify how far you have done your work, how far you can make readers to understand your concept through the picture. That is what the reason nowadays, when you go for any sort of presentation, they ask for the poster presentation in conferences, and then when you go for any sort of competitions for the researchers, they ask for the posters. Nowadays, these have become a culture. Because when you want to understand this, by seeing the graph itself, you'll get an idea what is the work is being done, and that becomes a very what I can say attractive area, or attracts the readers. Okay, so because they never want to waste the time, because a lot of papers are coming out from the entire world. That is what the reason they are making in a very simple way, and they also understand how far the writer can able to express his research. That is also very important, because when you talk about diagram is the tool for an engineer to explain his concepts. Okay, so on that basis, nowadays, all engineering papers are being asked to submit the graphical abstract. Of course, this was being asked in IEEE papers and some standard IEEE impact journal. But the thing is that, when you talk about this nowadays, even Indian journals, are also trying to ask this type of graphical abstracts. And then when you talk about the next thing is that a video abstract. Okay, a very important thing is that a video abstract. See, video abstract is that, it is a very a video abstract is a very beautiful opportunity. Okay, which can make a reviewer or a reader to understand your concept through your own voice. Okay, you are given an opportunity to give your idea through visual mode. Okay, when you create this, here how to make your video abstract is that you can get the samples in your Wiley publication. If you go to Wiley publications, okay, Wiley publications, in that publications you can see this examples how to make this particular samples of video abstract. And then if you want to create this type of video abstract, what is the best tool and easiest tool is that you can go for Adobe Spark, which is a free of cost. It's totally free. It is totally free. Okay, it is totally free. And that Adobe Spark, you can make a login and you can create your video of your own, because you can do your audio to be connected, you can have your pictures to be interface, and then you can make as a slide, and everything can be done. You can make this particular tool for slide presentation. You can add your audio. Okay, and you can add your voice. I can say it's a voice, not an audio. You can say a voice because you are going to narrate to the reader in a cryptic way, and that doesn't need any sort of experience, even by your normal voice. Because sometimes we feel that when you give some recording, there should be some pleasant what I can say voice or something. Nothing is required. See, what you do the research, and that can be given. But when you create this video abstract, a very important thing is that, see, when you create the picture, see, because here two things are there when you're creating a video abstract, is that you have a picture, and that picture will be synced with your voice. This is how you do it. But still, don't try to show your experimentation. Very important. Don't try to show your experiment. You just give the picture where you cannot able to explain through the voice. See, the picture should be in that way, is that which cannot be explained through the words. It means that by a word, sometimes you need to show through the picture. And that picture should be there in the presentation. And I think normally voice is that is going to explain the thing. Not like when you do this, don't try to make like PPT. See, PPT, you will have the word, and that word will be printed, and don't try to read. That is not the right way. It is a chance to express your ideas, and it is a chance to give your voice to the reviewer and then editor to make understand your paper very quickly, how you started and what is the problem. Here, when you talk about, you have to talk only two things, is that never you talk about your result. You talk about your problem, and you just talk about your problem, and then you talk about your result. Nothing else to be done. Okay, result. And of course, and this was the problem, and what was the result? By having some method. This is how you have to make it. And that should be given in a crypty way and in a precise manner. Not that everything I want to say, because your video will be not more than if at all you take a video bite or video abstract, something like that. Any video maximum, it should not be more than 4 minutes. Okay, it's very important. 4 minutes. Okay, not more than 4 minutes. Okay, that is very important, because if you take a survey, in YouTube, this is the standard. Many videos are being not viewed more than 6 minutes. Okay, 6 minutes. See, the maximum viewing capability of a person on a particular topic is not more than 6 minutes. That is what the reason, and nowadays, the advertisements given in YouTube are coming in the middle. And previously it was in the first. Of course, it has been made mandatory that it has to come in the middle, because everybody is trying to not to see these particular videos not more than 6 minutes. When it is having much interest, and then they will get into that entire video. Okay, that is what. Don't try to talk something unwanted. It means that try to beat the bush. Okay, don't beat the bush. That is not the way. It should be very precise. It should be very precise, and the picture should be very clear. What you cannot able to explain in the word, that should be as a picture. What you cannot explain to the picture, it should be in the word. That way the presentation should be there. See, and I will show you the very good tool for doing this abstract, that is your Adobe Spark. Now we are jumping into the one more area, is that your of course I can make it as a simple. I can combine this, I can combine in a very efficient way, that your AR and VR abstract. Okay, when you talk about AR and VR abstract, okay, I want to show that what you mean by AR and VR abstract. When you talk about AR and VR abstract, you have to what I can say, you have to work out with your you have to work out with your 3D tools. Of course, 3D tools plays a very vital role when you talk about your AR and VR abstract. What do you mean by 3D tools? There are a lot of 3D tools available in the internet, and you can go to Google, and you can take some what I can say 3D tools. Okay, there are 3D designing tools. Already some 3D designing tools are being readily available in the Google, and of course, if you go to Google, you can see that 3D tools. Okay, 3D tools are also playing a vital role nowadays. 3D diagrams, when you download that, when you talk about AR and VR abstract, okay, 3D tools, 3D diagrams, 3D models, ready-made models are available in Google. You can download that Google, and you can have any other ready-made what I can say AR VR making abstract tools, and that is being provided by many companies like Unity, and Indian company like Advance. Okay, and you can use your lot of third-party AR VR abstract developing tools. Okay, and of course Microsoft is also trying to give this type of AR VR tools. and of course that tools can also be used. And Adobe is having AR/VR tool, Adobe tools, Adobe tools. Okay, Adobe tools. You can use that and you can create it. But of course, these things are not right now necessary, and that is a very important thing. Of course, you can make it up to video abstract, and then you can do graphical abstract, and you can do this. But here, as I discussed earlier, and when to use this abstract, that is a very big question. When to use my first abstract, descriptive abstract, okay, because that is a very important thing, where to use this descriptive, where to use my informative abstract, and where to use my critical abstract. Okay, that becomes a very basic thing to understand. And then where to use my graphical abstract. Okay, where to use my video abstract. Okay, where to use my video abstract. That is very important. So this needs a very broad discussion. Where to use the descriptive abstract, where to use your what I can say informative abstract, where to use my critical abstract. See, very well knows that when you talk about critical abstract, it shows that if your design, if your development starts with simulation and completes the physical object or experimentation, we bring it in a hardware, and then after that you go for testing. And that part, if you do that, the entire research is that way. You can go for the critical abstract. It's not so. You can go for descriptive abstract. You can go for informative abstract. Okay. And now, when you want to go for descriptive abstract, when you want to go for informative abstract, if the area of your research, okay, if your area of your research is well known, okay, try to understand, it is a well known, okay. In that case, you don't go for your descriptive abstract. For example, if I talk something about what I can say, EEG signals. Everybody knows about EEG signal. Nothing is there to say that EEG signal has been kept in my head and then I'm just taking the signal. Nothing is to say about EEG signal. And you can directly enter into the EEG signal. In that case, you can go for informative abstract. If your area of research is in multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, in that case, you can go for descriptive. What do you mean by multidisciplinary? What do you mean by multidisciplinary? What do you mean by interdisciplinary? Okay, what do you mean by interdisciplinary? Now, if I do that EEG signals, okay, EEG sensors, now for any application, I use my nano materials. Okay, now I am going to use my chemistry here. I am just adding my nano into my ECG. I develop a new sensor. In that case, what happens? EEG sensor, people doesn't know about nano. Nano will not know about EEG sensor, because keeping your reviewer point, you have to write your abstract. That is very important. Not that what you keep in your brain, try to make it as a document and you can do it way of abstract. It's not like that. When you talk about something which is very new and the reviewer will not able to understand, by that time you have to give the introduction about that particular area. In that case, you can go for your descriptive abstract. Otherwise, okay, or otherwise you can go for your informative abstract. See, and when you want to talk about an EEG signal, when you are talking about neurology, for example, neurological disorder, especially neurological disorder, if you are talking about memory and if you are talking about digit span test, in that case, many people will not aware about psychological test. Even EEG people knows about EEG signal, sensor acquisition, algorithm, but they may not be aware about that particular digit span test. That there is a one test called digit span test for psychologists. When you do this for this particular application, by that time you have to give the explanation about digit span. Then you have to start with introduction. And that is how you have to make it very clear, based upon your application, based upon the reader's point of view, audience point of view. Writing is must when you write anything for the journal. Okay, audience point of view writing is must. Who is going to read? Who is my audience? And how my audience will take this? That should be kept. Even every line you think in that way, you write it in that way. Not that what I think I'm writing in the document. It should not be like that. If at all you want to make a writing, that case we can do in this fashion. For example, you can just put your you have to start your research in this way. Is that you do your experimentation, you get your result or something like that, and then after experimentation, you try to have your methodology to be written first. Okay, methodology should be written in the journal. Then after methodology, you have to go for the introduction. You have to go for your result and discussion. Okay, and then you have to go for your the next thing. You have to go for your very important thing is that your literature survey, because according to this, the survey has to be done. Then you have to go for your introduction. Then finally, the thing you have to write your abstract, and then finally your conclusion. The last with the conclusion. This is how you have to make it. Say that is where you do it, then you will understand very clearly what is my research, how it is going, and based upon that the paper will be. In that way, you can put your important things in your documentation. Okay. When you write all those things, you have to keep very clearly. It is going to be read by what I say. It is not read by yourself, not by your colleague, research scholars. It is going to be read by industry people. Maximum industry people will read it because they get some information, because they have some problems that has to be solved, something like that. Or sometimes your audience, it means that your audience may be from what I can say, professors, and then you have to look in that point, not that what I keep my concepts I can put it there. It is not that way. It should be always kept in what I can say, audience point of view. So this is how types of abstract. Now you understand what are the types of abstract, where to use my abstract. Now, when you give when a paper is given, how to identify what is the descriptive abstract, how it is your critical abstract, how will be your information abstract. Now, identification of the abstract, that is very important. Okay, that is very, very important. Then only you can understand by reading the sample journals, you can understand very clearly. As I said very clearly, I'll just go back to my first thing is that when you talk about your descriptive abstract, okay, and descriptive abstract, I'll make it very short to make the time to be saved. I never want to write full. You can take the notes. That is how it has been. When you talk about descriptive, as I said earlier, it will talk about introduction. It will talk about your background. It will talk about your problem. Okay, it will talk about your methodology, and it will talk about the result. This is how. Okay, this is how. Okay, problem, results. Now, when you talk about methodology, even if you take informative abstract, okay, it talks about methodology. It talks about a problem. It talks about the result. Now, this is the case. Everywhere we have been discussing about methodology. When you talk about your graphical abstract, okay, or when you have critical abstract, it also has its own methodology. Without methodology, no abstract is there. If you go for graphical abstracts also, even your graphical abstract, and it also has the methodology in the figure. And that is how methodology plays a very vital role. See, in any abstract, of course, a critical abstract, graphical abstract, you can see in the abstract itself will have a picture. If you have a paper, if this is the abstract, in this abstract will have a picture here. Now, this will be able to identify this is a graphical abstract, no doubt, to identify what type of abstract is that. But still, you will be confused which is your critical abstract, which will be your informative abstract, which will be your methodology. In that case, see, methodology is being started by any academic writer by giving a hint to the reader. That particular sentence will always start about in this paper, in this paper. They start with in this paper. See, now the methodology starts, the methodology sentence will always start in this paper, or we demonstrate, demonstrate, something like that, we proposed. Something like that, they give a hint saying that this is the methodology section. See, when a paper, if you talk about, when you take any abstract, for example, when you take any abstract, okay, when you take any abstract, in that abstract, you'll have your first line itself, in this paper, or we propose. It starts with the first sentence, in this paper. It comes into the category of informative abstract. Now, if the abstract, when an abstract, okay, has what I can say, in between there are many lines. There are many lines. In that, in between lines, if you have we propose, okay, we propose in this paper, something like that. That part is going to be your descriptive abstract. See, when you read this abstract, you can see this first line. What is the core first line is trying to explain? That will try to explain only the introduction. Okay, that will try to explain only the introduction. Now I am going to show you practically in the what I can say in your what I can say by downloading a new paper, and I'll just shift my screen, and I'm just going to download one paper, and then you are going to see me what is that particular abstract is going to be. Now I'll just go to any standard paper. Is that from IEEE? Okay, because IEEE you have to take only the standard papers. When you talk about IEEE standard papers nowadays, it has been given as an open source. So I'll take one paper from EEG because EEG, I'm just going to take one paper from EEG sensor. EEG related papers. Now, when you download this paper, please don't try to download conference papers, okay? And you have to download only latest papers. In that, you can click your yearly access. Yearly access is the paper which is going to be coming into your printing section before printing. Preliminarily, it has been accepted for publication, but not published. And that paper, if at all it is 2020, it may be published in 2021. It will be much advanced than the current year. Now, here, when you go here, you can go for an opportunity for open access papers to download. The entire paper in that particular area, you can get it. Of course, 29 papers are there. And you can see these all are transactions, okay, all are transactions, and then journals. You try to take only journal. Please don't try to go for IEEE access, okay. The IEEE access will not have any standard of writing, and it doesn't follow any sort of procedures. When you go for transactions and journals, it will have a beautiful writing, and then you can able to get a very beautiful idea, okay, and you can get a lot of information in that particular transactions, okay. And of course we want to understand that in transactions it will be a very clear writing, and of course the writing is changed from journal to journal. That we want to discuss later on in later sessions. Now I'll just go for one latest paper. I think so it is 2019. Now I'll just open this paper, and see, I'll just make it at a bigger size. See, you see, this paper has been clearly given objective. It means that it is your informative abstract. Luckily, this person has given, it has started with objective. It started with your methodology. It is started, I think they have given separately. Why this has been given here? Because the reader should directly go to this particular part and they have to do this. So you can see this, they have written with your conclusion. Okay. It means that, they have made it that this is the problem. Okay, this is the problem. I think you can able to see the result, conclusion, results. When you talk about this conclusion and results, now this is coming under your critical abstract. Okay, it comes under the critical abstract because they are trying to see that the prototype dry electrode represents important technology method in terms of user friendly, because it eliminates the need of gel in the electrode skin. It is really implemented, and they have shown the significance. And you can see this, they start with no introduction. Here ECG is a recording method, signals acquired, directly they get into that. You can see this, thereby here provides a non-enhanced descriptive way of recording and as potential and used for long-term brain. Now it comes under the critical, and these things, they are talking about here ECG. In between, you have your what I can say methodology. Now this abstract is totally has introduction part, and then it tries to give this method, it tries to give the results, and it tries to give the conclusion, and it tries to give the significance, importance. Of course, these orders can be interchanged, no doubt. As I discussed, see, when you talk about this, when I talk about this, I think you can able to see here. You can able to see the camera here at the corner. You can see this here. When you talk about this 1, 2, 3. This order can be changed, no doubt, but still these all things should be there. Now, and this comes under the informative. Directly they are going to what they want, where they are going to study, and what has been developed. You can see this word. Of course, they are given methods, but still it is being given very clearly. It has been developed and evaluated. It means that though they given their directly was developed. Okay, it means that instead of they are trying to say that it is to be proposed in the first particular sentence, the particular objective says very clearly it is developed. And now, and that has been discussed as a method, how they are doing it, and now how it has been developed. The procedures have been discussed in the form of method. Now this comes under informative abstract. Now we will take one more paper, and in that paper you can able to get it very clearly. We will try to get some descriptive abstract. Then you will understand what you mean by descriptive abstracts. Now I'll just go to one paper from transaction. Now I'll go for this particular transactions. See, they are given very clearly. It is only talks about objective. Okay, because the journal would have been given a very clear statement that they should contain this particular section. So that is what every abstracts are based on your informative. Because what I can say, it doesn't need anything. It talks about directly your we propose. See, the first sentence having the we propose. It means that they are proposing objective. Directly they talk about their methodology. This is my objective. And that objective is being proceeded by these methods. And that never talks about any introduction. I just take other paper, then you can understand, I think. So once again, this comes under the category of informative abstract. I want to take one descriptive paper because very old papers, very old areas that will not carry any sort of what I can say, descriptive abstract. I'll go for general thing. I'll go for image processing. Then I think I'll get some descriptive abstract. I'll just make it, because why I'm trying to do this, already it is not been taken. I'm just showing live, because you can take it live and you can do and you can check it with anything. Or otherwise, if I show some downloaded papers, it may feel that for the people who attend this class, they feel that he has taken only selective papers, whether it is really for all the papers. And that is not the reason we teach in a random way. We directly go there, even we are not seeing these papers earlier. And then that paper will be discussed here for the state class, and that will make you a very clear understanding. Now, we are going to see something about one paper in image processing. Okay. Now we'll see how the abstract is. We just wait for the downloading of the particular entire paper. From this paper, we'll wait and see whether this abstract belongs to descriptive or critical, or it is. Now this is the see, you can see this the article proposes, therefore article proposes, the word proposes is there in the middle. Now this is your proposed model, and this is how your editors will try to catch up. This type of reading, you call it as skimming and scanning reading technique. See, there is no way to read entire paper unless otherwise it is worth it. No professors are ready to, editors are ready to read your entire paper. They will be trying to catch the particular points in an article. Is that their eyes will try to move and find where this methodology part. From that methodology, they will come to a conclusion, and whether this paper is worthy to get into the review process or not. And that you can see by the way of writing. Now you can see the synthetic aperture radar image classification is important part for understanding and interpreting of the SAR images. Each patch in SAR images has a scene category, but usually contain. This is what they are talking about, the basics. Because many people who doesn't work in image processing, they doesn't have knowledge, may not be having a knowledge of synthetic aperture radar. So they give intro about this particular synthetic aperture radar. Then they discriminate what is the problem. Then for that problem, and they are sketching out a particular process of what I can say. Solution. That is how it can be done. When you read this, you can understand this where the problem is. The most of here is the problem. Most of the existing feature learning methods do not make not full use of high level structure features and feature correlation with similar images in mind discrimination. Therefore, this article proposes the discriminative sketch. See, their problem is that discriminative feature and discriminative sketch topic, and that is how they link and they write it. Okay. See, this is how this is how a descriptive abstract is being done. If at all you want to identify whether it is a critical abstract, you can see The experimental results tested on synthetic real images demonstrate now they are tested on real time and compared with the related approaches, and they have made a competitive classification with high resolution time efficiency. They never found that the result. In turn, they made it on a test. They made it a test on synthetic. See, when anything is being tested on real time, that becomes critical abstract. Now, this particular abstract talks about test bed, and it talks about your introduction, and then it has some methodology part, and it has the results, and it has your problem. Now this comes under the descriptive abstract. I think what I've taught in today's session and in today's class, you are able to get it very clearly what are the different types of abstracts. I think I think I can conclude my class here. We'll see this class continued in the next session. Okay. And of course, we'll be discussing about the next class, how to make the, how the reviewers will look into the article. That part we are going to see. And that is going to be very useful for writing your paper in terms of what I can say, categorical way of writing. Okay. And that is very important. We will be discussing about the categorical way of writing in the next class.